Hello, am I crazy? I'm planning to do another low spend year in 2025. I think it's just a lifestyle choice now. So I am going to do a few things differently. So I did a low spend challenge in 2024 and I don't know what I was thinking. I went into it with some pretty strict rules and I think it was a little bit much. I think I went into it with the intention of not being quite so strict, but then we had some huge expenses come up that we weren't planning for, and I went a bit extreme. So, first of all, hi, if you're new here, I'm Kathy. I'm 33 years old, I'm married, and I have a 1-year-old daughter. I also work full time, and so does my husband. In the beginning of 2024, I decided to do a low spend challenge in order to really focus on saving for retirement so that we could become financially free. However, those plans got derailed when we had to replace our roof in early April. The cost of our total roof replacement was $44,055, and so we needed to save up that amount of money within 1 year so that we wouldn't have to pay any interest on the loan that we took out. We also found out around that time that I had to return to work full time after giving birth to my daughter 5 months prior. I had originally planned to work from home as I was doing for the 3 years before, but my workplace decided that I needed to return in person. And so that added the additional cost of childcare as well as gas and maintenance on my car. So my original plan was, while working from home, that my parents would help watch my daughter occasionally as needed. But because I had to return to work for over 9 hours a day because of the long commute, my parents were unwilling to help out, and so I had to find childcare last minute, and that was an added expense that we had not budgeted for. And childcare is very expensive. Currently, we are paying $300 a week for daycare full time, which is quite a bargain in my area. We are at an at-home daycare provider instead of center, so that saves us a little bit of money, but it's still pretty expensive. So with all of those expenses adding up, I really buckled down on my low spend challenge and kind of made it a no spend challenge. So we went into the challenge thinking that we weren't going to spend really any money on home decor or kitchen gadgets or eating out or buying any clothing, personal items, electronics, or books. So we were basically only spending money on the absolute necessities, which were our bills and items for my daughter and our rabbits. We had a couple of slip-ups throughout the year with purchasing things that we weren't supposed to. However, anytime we did make a purchase, it was usually from the thrift store, so it wasn't very much money, or if there was a significant sale and it was something that we had been wanting for a pretty long time. So we really didn't make very many impulse purchases, except occasionally for some food splurges at the grocery store, which is still a weakness of ours. So I think this year in our low spend challenge, I'm going to be a little bit more flexible with our rules because there are some things that we would like to purchase that we have been putting off for a pretty long time. So I made a video earlier about my spending goals for 2025, as well as all of my other financial goals. But the important thing for this challenge is the spending goals that I set within my sinking funds. So if you're unfamiliar with sinking funds, this is the way that I budget for my family, and basically all of our expenses that are not fixed expenses, like if it's not the same price every single month, then it's usually put into a sinking fund. So things like our electricity car insurance and daycare, which is always the same price every month, I put those in our fixed expenses. But things like groceries or home maintenance or gasoline for our cars and car maintenance, all of that goes into sinking funds. I have quite a few sinking funds, and I will pop them up on the screen for you to see. So the reason why I like to do sinking funds, it's kind of like virtual cash envelopes where you fill your sinking funds and you can only spend the money that you have in those sinking funds. And I like to do them virtually because I like to buy everything on a credit card so that I can get cash back. But then I pay off my credit card every single month so that I never pay any interest. But I like the virtual sinking funds because I don't like to handle cash that often, and I find credit cards so much easier to use. But a lot of our variable expenses, we don't really keep a very consistent schedule with when we buy things, which is why sinking funds work so much better for our family than budgeting out every single one of these items. So, for example, I get gas about every 6 weeks for my car, which means some months I will buy gas once, and some months I will buy gas twice. And so I could switch up my budget every single month to account for, I'm probably going to get gas once, I'm probably going to get gas twice, but for me, it's just easier to have a sinking fund where I contribute every single month the same amount of money and then spend as long as I don't exceed the amount that's in that sinking fund. Similarly, for groceries, there are times where we don't grocery shop every week, and then there's times where we go a lot, and then there are times when we fill up on a really big order of lots of stuff that we've been running out of, and then there's times where all we're picking up is like onions and bananas and tofu. So sometimes we have hundreds of dollars in groceries for the week or the month, and then there's sometimes where it's less than $100. So having a sinking fund for these items is what works best for my family. So maybe if you're someone who's really inconsistent with your shopping habits, then sinking funds would probably work well for you. Or even if your income is variable, then maybe sinking funds would work for you as well, because then when you have larger income months, you can fill up all of your sinking funds and then just spend them down when you have lower income months. But we have very variable spending habits, and so sinking funds work well for my family for that reason. But going back to our no spend challenge rules, this year we're going to do a more of a low spend challenge, which was what we were supposed to be doing last year, and it turned more into a no spend challenge. But this year, I think we're going to have similar low spend categories because we really want to focus only on buying what's absolutely necessary, what really brings value to us. We learned last year with our low spend challenge to be really mindful of our purchases and to only bring things into our house that really brought value to us. So things that we really thought that we absolutely needed, and it wasn't an impulse purchase. So we really cut back on those impulse purchases last year, and that was super helpful for us. So I think this year, going forward, we are also going to really be mindful of the things that we're bringing into the house. So I still don't want to be spending on home decor or kitchen gadgets, with a few exceptions. And I probably won't make very much personal spending, although there might be some quality of life things that I would like to purchase in this year. But I have budgeted $60 for the entire year on personal spending, plus I have what remains from my sinking fund from last year, from 2024, that will roll into 2025. And so I'll have a pretty substantial amount that I can use in that category. So one area that we didn't really spend in last year was restaurants. And A big part of that was that my daughter was less than a year old, so it was very hard to bring her into restaurants. We don't have one of those like car seat carriers that you have where you can just bring an infant sleeping in the carrier, because the only way that I traveled with her was I would baby wear, so she would always be in a carrier. And it was kind of hard to, sit down at a restaurant while you're baby wearing, although it can be done, but like eating over her head is a recipe for disaster. So we didn't go to restaurants last year for that reason, and we also didn't really get takeout at all either. We just did all of our cooking at home. And so this year, as my daughter approaches 2 years old, we may take her out to a restaurant at least once to see how she does. And now she's also able to, she's been sitting up for a few months now, so she can sit in a high chair at a restaurant, and I think that would be fun to try out at least once with her. So we're going to be a little bit more lenient on restaurants this year, and we had saved up a little bit in our sinking fund from last year because we didn't go, but we were still contributing to restaurants. This year we're planning to contribute about $240 to our restaurant sinking fund so that we can go out to eat at least once. Another area that we didn't spend very much in last year was travel and entertainment. And again, that was mostly because my daughter was so young, and traveling with her was probably going to be a little bit of a hassle. We did take her camping with us, which was a trip that we had paid for the year before. It was only a couple $100, so not that big of a deal. And then we did take her to visit my grandparents twice. But I think maybe this year it could be fun to do like a beach trip with her, but we don't have anything planned quite yet. It all depends on whether or not we have time off from work. She's been sick almost the entire winter so far, which means I've had to use a lot of my paid time off at work, and so I might not have any come summer if she continues getting sick. So there might not be a vacation in the summer for that reason. Hopefully her immune system will get a bit stronger as she gets a little bit older. So we're only budgeting about $60 this year for travel and entertainment. We may go do some local events now that she's a little bit older and may enjoy them if I don't have vacation time that I can use for an actual vacation. We have some money in our sinking fund from last year that we can roll over to this year to use for travel and entertainment if we do decide to do something like that. So that's a bit of a recap of the no spend categories that we did last year and how we're going to change them up a little bit this year. And the other one that I mentioned was home decor and kitchen gadgets. We're not planning on buying any more kitchen gadgets. I think we slipped a little bit last year, purchasing a few things at the thrift store. And maybe books also. My husband really likes to find cookbooks at the thrift store. But this year we're considering remodeling one of our bathrooms, and so that's going to require probably some decor items, maybe like new bath towels, which I've been putting off buying because why buy new bath towels when your bathroom is old and gross? So there might be things like that we are going to purchase if we end up being able to remodel the bathroom this year. Our biggest goal this year, if you've watched my goals video, is to pay off probably half of our debts. But if we manage to save up beyond that, and the other emergency thing that we're going to have to fix, then the bathroom remodel is next on our list, and that may require some, fancy things. But let me know in the comments if you're considering a low spend year this year. If you've done one before, if you've ever done a low spend month, let me know how it went for you, what you're looking forward to learning this year if you're planning a low spend year along with me. If you're interested in watching my low spend challenge again this year, then please hit subscribe because I would love to have you follow along. Thank you for being here.